Good morning. I'm CW5 Roy Rucker. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for the USAPAC G6. And on behalf of General Brown and CW5 Tonga, the Senior Warrant Officer Advisor to I almost said CW4, but to General Brown, welcome to the Senior Warrant Officer Forum at LANPAC. This is a historical moment because this is the very first time that the warrant officers have had the opportunity to present at LANPAC. And as I look around the room is filled with probably about 99% warrant officers. That's not an expectation that I had. I expected yes for all of the warrant officers that accepted the invite to be here, like they said they would. I think it was close to 150. And also the room to be filled with other officers, non-commissioned officers, to hear and or ask questions about the specifics on the multi-domain battle and any other topic that's relevant to how we fight here in the Pacific that subject matter experts and systems matters experts could answer. So, Aaron, could you do me a favor? Could you come on up? Because I didn't forget you. I'm going to be up on my feet all day. I'm not going to sit too much because I got back problems. But this is our first opportunity, and I don't know, from a show of hands for all the warrant officers we have in the audience, how many of you know what the multi-domain battle is? Oh, that's a good showing. How many of you have part in the efforts to construct what the multi-domain battle is here in the Pacific? Keep your hands up. Raise them up a little high. So you see that small number right there should be a lot larger. Should be a lot larger because we as subject and systems matter experts should all be engaged in this effort because it's critical. It really is. It's critical. But before we go any further, I want the seniors here on the panel to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do. And I have a few more members out in the audience that I want to do the same because we have an hour and 30 minutes. And I don't think we're going to hit an hour and 30 minutes, but who knows? So starting from my left down.
CW5 Eric Mall. I'm the Command Chief Warrant Officer for the 94th WMDC. It's a first ever for our WMDC, so I'm paving new routes.
Good morning. I'm CW5 Ray. I'm new coming into USAPAC. I am taking the place of the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Sammy Tonga. So I'm working at USAPAC G4 Material Readiness Branch.
Good morning. I'm CW4 Mark Parr. I'm an 890 Alpha, Senior Ammunition Tech, but my role here now is the Command Chief Warrant Officer of the 8th Theater Sustainment Command.
CW4 promotable.
Next week.
Hey, CW5 Sammy Tonga. That's my replacement over there. It's good to be here. As you know, this is a very historical event. And one of the main reasons that we're gathered here today is because General Brown, as you know, he's a warrant officer general. And a lot of questions have been asked throughout the Pacific. What is the role of a warrant officer? A lot of these foreign officers does not understand our role. And the last time we met, he said, hey, I need to have you guys get involved. And, you know, there's a lot of foreign officers here and senior NCOs. You need to, you know, integrate with them, mix with them, so they can understand basically what we do, because you see a whole bunch of them all around. So this is just the beginning. So for those of you that are in the Pacific, you know, we travel to places where all the foreigners, they don't really know what a warrant officer, what our role is in the military. We have a very significant role, you know, ahead of you guys, ahead of us, that they need to understand. Because one general officer from, you know, Australia, he doesn't even know what a warrant officer is. So that's why it triggered to me to ask General, you know, to have this forum. So I appreciate everyone present, and I appreciate if you guys, you know, introduce yourself to other senior officers and senior NCOs, foreigners that are here within this LANPAC exercise. So thank you for being here, and I appreciate all of you in attendance. Thank you.
Good morning. Chief Warrant Officer 5, Tom Little, Personnel Officer, Total Force, Management for Marine Forces Pacific, Cam Smith. And there's quite a few of you here. There's only 2 of us, so don't pick on me today. Because I haven't figured out how to turn this mic off yet. But yeah, there's only 4 CW05s on this island, marine-wise. So we're a very, very, very small community. And please keep the unicorn comment low. All right.
All right, good morning. My name is CW5 John Brassfield. I'm with the 9th Mission Support Command.
Good morning. I'm CW5 Curtis McDowell, work for the Command Chief Warrant Officer for the 311th Signal Command. I'm a 255 Zulu. Been here about 6 months. And 311th, we provide comms and run all the SATCOM stations for the Army here in the Pacific Theater.
Good morning. I'm CW5 Shane Atkinson, 25th CAP Standardization Officer. My primary role is to watch over the CAB and the aviation assets and to provide standards for integration of training. But this is a very unique LANPAC forum to come to understand the bigger picture, especially from a CAB perspective with the warfighter exercise as it goes forward and tying in our allied countries and I won't say using, but tying in our allied countries so we can culminate the forces in the interest of America's national security and interest.
Good morning. I'm CW5 Erin O'Hara. I am the Senior MI Warrant Officer here on island. I work in the G2, and I'm a 350 Fox, which is an all-source intelligence warrant. Happy to be here. I have nothing else witty to say. Sorry.
And we have a few more W5s in the audience that I would like for them to stand up and introduce themselves, to include one special retired CW5 who sits right in front of me right here. I want him to stand up first and introduce himself. Go ahead, Mike.
CW5 Mike Kelly. Done about 21 years in Hawaii, so I'm pretty well versed with the aviation side of the house, along with personal recovery, working for General Brooks and General Brown. Handing off to Sammy Tonga, who's now going to retire here pretty soon, and handing off to CW5 Ray. So it's kind of a good handoff going in place right now. If you guys have any other questions or anything warrant officer-wise, we've got 42 years plus for retirement, staying here on the island, teach scuba diving.
Where's the business card?
I'm CW5 Brian McCurry. Don't let the aviation badge fool you. I fly a desk. I have for a couple of years. A little bit different entity in that I'm plugged into what the G34 as the personal recovery officer for all of USAPAC. Where that affects you guys is when you do your travel and ISOPREP, right, PRMS, right? So I've got 40,000 plus of all of you and your managers that we look at throughout USAPAC. And one note on the PR side, as we go into the joint arena and the coalition piece, if you've ever noticed, one, there's no 5s in the Coast Guard, there's no warrant officers at all in the Air Force, and then when you go with these other countries who a lot of them have a British model military, what is the warrant officer? Senior enlisted, right? So I'm working in the KAOC a few years back for CENTCOM running PR. I have a meeting with a British major and say, and he keeps calling me Mr. McCrae. I'm like, hey, sir, call me Matt. I'll still call you sir, and we'll be good to go. And he says, no, we don't call our other ranks by their Christian names. And I looked at him and I said, young man, I was commissioned as an officer in the United States Army in 1994. What about you? Oh, no. So they don't understand. So you have to be able to explain what is it that a warrant officer does and how do you function and how you integrate when you're dealing with an entity and your counterpart is a warrant officer, but his perspective on life in the military is totally different from yours. And that kind of goes to what he was talking about is what is it we do being able to explain in our people like that.
Chief Jeff Howell, I'm the senior maintenance tech for 311 Signal Command and also the senior 948 on island. So glad to be here.
One of our newest CW5s.
CW5 Wahab, I heard we having donuts, so that's why I showed up.
Classic.
I'm the 94th WMDC G3, but I'm actually working in the 613th AOC as the theater for the Sickness and Defense Joint Information Control Officer. So we're aircraft, North Korea launches a missile, my network is set up, whatever, to pass information, whether it's acquired by PPY2, Aegis, Patriot, that, or whatever, all the way up to the President of the United States. So every time you see a launch, it's like a baby. So this multi-domain task force, I've been working in multi-domain.
Hold on, hold that part. You're gonna get your chance, because
I'm very passionate about it.
Oh.
he is very passionate, and I'm gonna exploit that passion. So in a very short period of time. So hold what you got, high speed.
Good morning, I'm CW5 Eric Hooker. I'm the 921 Alpha, the Air Delivery Systems Technician. I am the Command Airdrop Advisor for USAPAC. I work in the G4. If you have any questions on air delivery and its modes and methods here in the Pacific, the person to come talk to will put you in the right direction and get you what you need. Any force, anytime, that's what we do. Thank you.
Good morning, CW5 Archer Cato. I'm the Regional Maintenance Tech for the Puncher Division. And
Tropic.
we're just maintainers for the Pacific Division. So,
Come on, D.
CW5 D, so I'm a geospatial engineering technician. So we do all the maps, overlays, and all the digital maps you got. That's what we do. I work in the G2 with this one here.
So did I miss any CW5s?
Mr. Black right there.
There you go. Come.
I'm Black. I worked back in 2 years. Senior 120 facility construction.
Tom, you try to hide out on me, huh? So the reason why I had all the CW5s announced is because, number one, it is the senior warrant officer forum, and we are the senior of seniors. I think the 0.022% of the Army now, that number fluctuates. And that's important because everyone that's here that's a warrant officer, you have a senior in your MOS field, in your branch represented. And that's going to be important in the latter part of this conversation. But I want to start off with this. One of our brethren downrange in Afghanistan called me once he found out we were having the first ever warrant officer forum for LANPAC, and he couldn't be here. Some of you might know CW3 Laponsny. Does any of you know him? Right. Great American, right? So he contacted me and said, hey, Chief, it's a good thing that you guys are doing it in the Pacific, finally participating in LANPAC. So if you allow me, I want to fly a flag on multiple locations in Afghanistan, and I'm going to send it to you. And I want you to present it in honor of the highly skilled officers we are at LANPAC. And when he sent me that note, and then he called me, it kind of blew me out of my seat because here's one of us downrange in harm's way thinking about us back here in paradise. So I told him by all means, please send it to me. So the glass broke while I was being shipped, but I waited because I just got back off vacation. I'm going to have the glass replaced. And this flag is going to actually make its way around, hopefully to all the CW5s, to put in their office for at least a month, because I'm going to circulate it, because it means a lot to me, and I hope that it actually means a lot to you. So I'll read it. It's from Operation Freedom's Sentinel, flown on March 10th and April 22nd, 2017, for the Warrant Officer Corps. Be it known by all, this flag was flown with great honor over Bagram, Kabul, and Jalalabad in support of combat operations, where each day coalition forces fight the global war on terrorism in remembrance of all who lost their lives. And it's signed by the CJIC, Senior Intelligence Officer, and CW3 Laponsny. So when General Brown directed to Chief Tonga and myself that, well, he actually directed to his 06, and then the directors of the directors who build the land war net, I mean not land war net, excuse me, I'm thinking totally signal here, who build LANPAC, the structure for LANPAC every year. he directed that there be a warrant officer forum. And like Chief Tonga said, his message was not that we come here today to talk about the multi-domain battle per se, even though that is a hot topic in pretty much every forum that you sit in throughout the week. And we're going to talk about a small piece of that. But per his direction, he wants us to get to know our joint brethren, and we don't have any Navy that showed up today. They were supposed to have. We have, several Marine, and I like that. But he wants us to get to know our joint brethren and sisters. He wants us to get to know, I can't say the international warrant officers from the foreign military because they're senior sergeant majors. He wants us to get to know the other officers and senior non-commissioned officers and senior officers and senior non-commissioned officers in the other forces. That's why LANPAC is important. That's why it's okay to drop a few hours out of your day during the week and come down to support LANPAC. Not that you have to register with AUSA and become a member, which is a good thing to do, and I have somebody here that's going to talk about that in a few seconds. It's a good thing to do, but it's critically important that we know who we fight with. That's the most critical thing that you as a warrant officer, as a professional, as a leader can do, can know. You have to know who you fight with. And we warrant officers, we have a very keen and unique way of getting stuff done outside of traditional channels. So it's incumbent on us to get to know each other. Right, Heather? Yeah. So that's the importance of this setting. And like I said earlier in the beginning, I was hoping to have more regular commissioned officers, senior enlisted, to participate, but that's okay. But this is the first of the first of many. And this is a very historical moment for us. And General Brown has promised that this is not just going to be the first. This thing will continue.
Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
My name is John Davies, and I'm the Director of Membership for AUSA, but quite apart from that, I wanted to congratulate you all for being here, being in this group, and let you know some things that we're doing at AUSA now in conjunction with the Warrant Officers Association, Jack Teal up there. For a number of years now, we've been partnering with WOA at the annual meeting and several other different events to try to build a better and a stronger relationship with the Warrant Officers Association. So this year, what we've decided to do is that we're going to partner on our membership. And so if you're currently a member, how many people do we have that are members of Warrant Officers Association here now? So at the end of this month, you will, if you are not already a member of AUSA, be automatically given a one-year membership in AUSA at no cost to you. And if you are not a member of WOA, you can join AUSA and you'll be given a one-year membership in WOA at no cost. Quite frankly, since our rates are much lower than WOA's, that's kind of a good deal to have. This is the first of a number of partnerships that we're working with different associations. But General Hand, General McQuistion, myself as an MP, retired MP, I relied a lot on the agents that helped educate me over the years and bring me up. Now, some of you may have different thoughts about some of those agents, but we wanted to continue. We wanted to build that relationship with the Warrant Officer Board, and so this is a great opportunity, and I hope we got some good pictures to be able to send back to Jack so he can include it in his next magazine article. So again, congratulations. If you aren't a member of either organization, come by and see us up where the food was, reception was being held, and we can get you signed up and get you taken care of. So again, congratulations. It's great to see a great group here. And we're going to continue this year. Warrant Officers Association has got its annual membership meeting the same time that we're having our annual meeting in Washington. And AUSA is helping to underwrite a good chunk of that cost for them, and so perhaps we can continue doing this thing. But we're looking for many, many years of a strong relationship between the two associations so that we can build that synergy and get things done that need to get done. So thanks a lot and congratulations.
All right, thank you. So, like I said, one of the most important conversations that are going on this week is the multi-domain battle piece. And key to that is integration. Integration of, services, different services, and internally to the Army, all of the branches and the MOSs and the jobs that we support, how they're integrated into the bigger fight. So to get that piece out of the way, because there's another topic I want to hit that's very warrant officer specific, and it keys into the reason why we have these senior professionals up here for a few questions from you guys and girls. I want to have Chief Wahab to stand up, because I love his passion. And I need him to grab that mic right there. You sure? Oh, yeah, right, you do. So I gave him a warning this morning. I gave him, well, he's been warned for a couple of months now.
Hey, they're recording this, so you probably do want to grab the mic.
Yeah.
So they can...
So one of the most passionate warrant officers I know about his job and about a few other topics. And when I got the chance to sit down with Don to talk about the MDB as far as network integration and a few other things, I really latched on to his passion because he is a very knowledgeable guy. So Don, why don't you go ahead and share your thoughts on the MDB and what you do?
Okay, the MDB, as far as it being a new concept, it is not. It is a new concept to the big Army as a whole, to other services within the Army. The air defense community, we've been doing the multi-domain battle for a while now. Myself, being the former, previous assignment to this one right now was the Joint Interface Control Officer, senior instructor at the Joint Staff J7, Joint Interoperability Division. Basically what we did was teach the different services, coalition, and allies on Link 16, how you establish a network, how you participate in the network, and everything like that. How many of you guys have been in the BCT before? Probably everybody in this room. You guys heard of the Atom BAE, right? Guess what? That's Link 16. That's bringing that joint picture from Navy, Air Force, Marine, different services down to that BCT level. Aircraft recovery. You got an aircraft that's down. There's a symbology that's put in there for a downed aircraft. What that information does, it totally bypasses everything. A forced tail, it goes all the way up to the highest, all the way down to the lowest. And that's multi-domain, coming across different services, different domains. For the ballistic missile defense side, and the way we want to do this, let's say the forward-based radars in Japan pick up a threat coming out of country X, right? That's an Army system they're picking it up. What that Army system does is then, through multiple networks, multiple services, comes in, goes out to a Navy ship. That Navy ship in returns get acquired that same target. That information comes back to that from the Army's equipment that gathered it, so you could do coordination of fires. That information then goes down to everywhere. So multi-domain is something new in a sense where it's coming to the whole Army, but as far as the air defense, the BCTs, we've been doing it. The problem we have right now, Chief Sheltron, who's the 140 Alpha by trade, but actually more of a 250 series, very knowledgeable on network. She does the planning for that as far as network, going across the network, the firewall exemption requests, the ESRs. Oh, by the way, we got to get satellite time. She does that. My job is to just, okay, dynamic reconfiguration. How do I get that information from that Aegis ship, which, oh, by the way, doesn't come into the gateway, it comes into a NICTAMS, Naval Computers Telecommunications Area Mass Station, from a simplex to a ciphertext. How do I get that information to talk? How do I pass that strategic Aegis information down to a regional Patriot defending Island X? How do I get that Sentinel radar at the BCT that's tracking that aircraft all the way back up to the tactical picture, to the common operational picture held by the COCOM, or the top cop at STRATCOM, or, by the way, the Secretary of Defense of the President of the United States? How do we do that? How do I incorporate Korea and Japan? Right, Japan has Aegis, so therefore all information is releasable to them. Korea has Aegis, but not the engagement capability, so how do I go to a cross-domain solution to not share that information with them? Oh, by the way, they can't see each other's information. So how do I stop that? How to prevent myself from being in prison? Because I'm too small and too handsome to be anybody's cellmate, okay? So that is part of the multi-domain battlefield that we do daily, I do daily. And it's something that we just need to get the rest of the Army up to speed on how it's done. Aviation, the Apache Echo model with these new STTs coming in, guess what? That's Link 16. That's only Fort Lewis, but that's Link 16. So now how do we incorporate, how do I pass a track, information exchange requirement, one of the key things, how do I pass a track that's a F-14, F-18 tracking down to that Apache? How do I do that from different protocols? So that's part of my job, dynamic reconfiguring information exchange requirement on what the commander needs to see. And to sum it up, because I could go on for days, the thing is, the multi-domain battlefield, we're at the 85 to 90% solution there when it comes to the technical expertise as far as the data links. What we need to come up with is how do we get ATACMs onto a ship out there? The TTP, what TTPs we need to develop for that? I think the 131s could talk that. Do we go to the BCD, down to the division, the brigade fires, down to that gun unit? How do we do that? Because I could get you that ship out there that said that's a hostile ship. Now the job is for the 131, the fires guy say, how do I get steel on target? For my comms guy, how do I get that information? What's my requirement to get that information down to that gun line? Okay? The pass server, the BCS server, and the BCTs, that's the primary way. But now how do I get it to that gun bunny down there? Okay? That TAC-P out there with the ASOC, with the TAC-P pony marking the target on the ground, how did that come back to the ASOC gateway up to me, out to that gun? That's part of the multi-domain battle that we do every day. So when everybody's talking about, oh, it's this new concept, multi-domain, that's why I get frustrated with it. It's not something new. It's something that we need to take off the shelf, dust off, and proceed. Because we've been doing it since 2004. The Atom cells came around. We've been doing it at the division level. So when you hear something new, it's not something new. It's something that we just need to practice. Because I tell everybody right now we're a P- at it. We need to get up to a T.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
With under 5 minutes.
You had more than 5 minutes, but that's okay. So was everyone able to capture the essence of what CW5 Wahab stated? Are there any questions?
If you guys want to tour the AOC, I mean, shoot me an email. 14 email, don.wahab@us.af.mil. I have a card, and I can give a tour of the AOC, and your eyes be open as far as what Army guys are doing. Because like I said, for an Army guy, I've been working there for the last 6 years. And when General Flynn came there, they was like, okay, who's your system, who's your integrator of all this? General Dillon, the A3, was like, CW5, Wahab, not CW5, Wahab, was like, no, who's your actor? Like, no, it's the Army guy that's doing this. And that's what people don't understand. I mean, with air defense, we've been doing this since the late 80s. And by partners of the missile defense assets, who better than have a guy in the Marines doing this? Like I said, 6 years I worked with the Air Force, Navy, Marines, and everyone. I mean, a lot of these guys that are out here, actually, the Joint Information Control Officer, they were my students coming through. So we've established that reputation with these guys. It's like, this Army in 40 Alpha, yeah, they know what they're talking about. Because myself and Chief Shelter on the presidents we've said. That's it. I'll sit down.
Any questions?
Chief Element G6 might have ID. Is there any plans to incorporate this into the exercises?
Could somebody, hold on for a second, Chief Philman. We need the mic passed around because it's being recorded. And the other thing to remember is this is an unclassified session. So this type of conversation could quickly lead to
Yes, sir. Yes.
that forbidden area. So let's be cognizant.
Yes, sir. Is there any plans to incorporate this level of training in normal like division training routines in their doctrine? Because you say, you know, it's not new, but we're not really doing it.
And that's a perfect example. TW2 Bowser here, he's at 25th ID as well, too. What we do from the PACOM publishing order, annual order, BRE, BMDS readiness exercise, monthly ORE, operational readiness exercise, quarterly, where NORTHCOM is evaluating us on measures of effectiveness. How far can we get this up or whatever? My plan is next year, once it's written, to have 25th ID do the monthly training with it. But Chief Bowser actually could speak on that as far as like the ability. There are assets available. You could do a phone call. You could get with HIROC, the Hawaii Regional Air and Space Operations Center, to do line of sight. I think the biggest problem we run into, the hip pocket training, getting a firewall exemption request to an Air Force, it takes a minimum of 90 days. Even longer, because now if you want to do training next week, it's not going to happen. If you want to do training with USAPAC, you got to do ESR. How long is that? About 30 days to get that?
Yeah.
About 30 days.
Well, 30.
About 30 days. So that's the
make me
thing.
look bad.
Once we figure out that piece, okay, this is multi-domain. We're going across different domains, different NOCs. How do we bypass that time or say, hey, look, we need this now? I mean, it's something that we've been fighting, and it's 94th. I'm in 94th. I work with AOC. We put in a FUR last October. It still hasn't gotten approved. And I work right there within the cell that put in the FUR. Air Force, as long as it takes that GS-13 to walk 2 doors down, that's how long it'll take that FUR to get approved. So we're all for it. We want the training. We want to get everybody trained up. It's just the fact that you guys need to raise your hand and say, hey, look, we want to do this training. Ask your question?
It's coming.
That's all I got.
You ready?
Yeah, we work together, so he's going to get me.
So I'm CW4 Casey Lynch. I work with Mr. Wahab. My question is on this issue with having to deal with Army domain, Air Force domain, potentially the Marine Corps domain. Is there any effort within PACOM to standardize and flatten the requirements in order to get access to the domains?
The answer to that question is yes. There are efforts right now, and they haven't been finalized, but this is one of the important reasons why, sidebars are happening here at LANPAC and even away from LANPAC. There are work groups that are actually set up to discover efficiencies and the how-tos before it's presented. Right.
The reason I ask is my concern is, digital mission command systems and trying to work that cross domains, cross services, and having a single, trying to do 3 firewall exemption requests in order to get my primary weapon system online is ridiculous.
Yep.
So, thanks, sir.
So the other important thing of having all this brain power in this room is, we have enough warrant officers in this room, enough brain power to cure cancer, right? So when we start talking about things like firewall exemptions and all the other minor things that jump services, Heather, you can stand up and go to the mic. We are the critical links in that to get things done. We just have to voice it, and it has to be presented the right way to the right people or persons. Go ahead, Heather.
Sorry, I'm a little shorter, obviously. My name is CW4 Heather Sheltron.
You can remove the mic if you want.
Okay. I'm a 140 Alpha. I work with Mr. Wahab here. I'm in the G6, the 94th WMDC. The only reason I got stuck in the G6 is because for some reason they looked at my college degrees and said, oh, you're an IT background. Guess what? You're going. So here I am, right? So I do all this network planning. And the biggest problem we see when we're doing all this network planning is that we don't have standardized policies in place between the different services. And so even though we may standardize and flatten this out in PACOM, we still have this problem in CENTCOM, we still have this problem in UCOM, right? Or anywhere in SOUTHCOM. So it doesn't matter what we do at the COCOM level, we have to bring this up to the department level. This has to become a joint issue. It has to be attacked by joint services. So the FURs, the firewalls, that's just one problem. We have other multiple problems like systems, protected communications, AEHF, advanced extremely high frequency spectrum, right? It's great. It's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But do you know what we use it in the Army for? Nothing. We have them at the BCTs. We have them at Division. We have them at Corps. They sit there and they rot. So when we go out to the field and we deploy a THAAD unit in Korea, we don't know how to use it, right? We have tools we are not using. We are not practicing our trade. We have so many tools that we have got to go out and use them. If we don't use them, we'll lose them, right? This MBB problem, like Mr. Wahab said, it's at a 90% solution. But we have to be able to go out there and use what we have in inventory, not buy new stuff, but use what we have. Because we have it, and we have the capability, and we have a ton of brains in here that we could kill anything and make this not an issue. Like I said, though, a problem is, again, at all the departments. They have to be standardized. I read an article about a week ago where it said, get rid of all the departments, make it one joint service, and we do different task force missions. Sounds great. would really solve a lot of problems. Integration across the Air Force and across the Army with 2 different systems would be awesome. But in reality, it's not going to work because we've been so, tunneled that we have to be our own department. But these are the things that we need to look at. We need to look outside of, ourselves, outside of U.S. Army, and we have to go joint services. So we attack this every single day. And one thing, I'm sorry, is the project that Mr. Rucker absolutely probably does not like me for right now with ATSC. I'm trying to put Link 16 on boats, right, on our Army boats, because what do Army boats carry? Ammunition, supplies, they do rescue operations, they do all sorts of stuff, right? And they're great. For an air defender, they have my Patriot missiles on there. That's absolutely critical that I know where those boats are at all times. Right now, here in the Pacific, they don't have that capability. I'm trying to give it to them. They don't have BFT because we took the spot beams away. Nobody was using them. That's problematic. So how do you track those boats? When they go and they chop from PACOM to CENTCOM, and they're in Iranian waters, and they're looking at, a hostile boat, a hostile Iranian boat, how do they say that they have an emergency? They can't, unless they do a voice comms and somebody's listening. So this is something that we're working with ATSC to help them, and we're trying to bring Link 16 into their COIC so that they have a common operational, a common tactical picture that actually updates near real time, less than 12 seconds latency, vice 15 minutes on ECOP. Right? These are the small steps we're trying to help, but it's the small steps that add to the big things that's going to make everything work.
So one solution that I have from the signal perspective is at the Joint Staff J6, we have a CW5. He's getting ready to retire. But the thing is these issues on the Air Force side of the house, they can be presented, in the building directly. So we just need to know about it. And I just found out about this one
I know.
just yesterday.
Well, these FERS and stuff, like you said, it should take 90 days on the Air Force side, and we're not knowing about this until we actually get into it, and we actually are trying to execute it.
Absolutely.
So that's a big problem. Lessons learned, I know everybody hates call because you got to do more writing, right? But call, there's a reason for it. And take all these lessons learned, package them up, and send them up, right? We can't keep repeating the same processes over and expecting different results.
Thank you.
And I think to add to that, with one of the things with the network being one of the issues, I think there are multiple ways of getting what we need to do to get to the end user or to the top user. But once again, you go into different things with the pulse deconfliction server when you're doing the RF, which interferes with FAA communications. So we have to watch that. And the reason we keep harping on the network because that is the easiest, most reliable, fastest way of getting long haul communications. I could do line of sight, but I'm only going out with High Rock, being up there on Mount Carla. I can only reach out 216 miles. That's not very far when you're in the Pacific Ocean. With the TCP/IP, I can reach out wherever in the world, or with these satellites, I can reach out wherever. But once again, there are limitations that come with that. And the quickest, easiest way, if you have SIPRNet, I could pass you anything you want from anywhere you want. I could bring you right now a picture from a fill-in-the-blanket and get you what you want. You can pull up an aircraft and see him tracking what his payload is, what his call sign is, how much ammo he has, and what's his mission. So.
One thing we didn't talk about with MDB, though, is the cyber threat and how to attack cyber, because we do talk about using so many different networks. How do you go about protecting every network? How do you go about actually monitoring every network? TNMS gives us the capability within the BCT levels, even at AAMDC, to monitor networks, right? But how many networks? Right now, we operate off of 7 networks in our headquarters. And so I don't have enough TNMS to monitor all those networks. And then what do I have for offensive capability? 0, right? So these are things that we have to keep in mind, too. There's this huge cyber threat out there. And that the more we put on an actual hardened network over TCP/IP, the more the threat becomes increased. So.
And that's as far as you can go into that piece.
I know. That's as far as I did go.
Okay. All right. You got close. Go ahead, Don. You got anything else?
No. I think the cyber plays a lot of role because this MDB task force is supposed to be that close into the enemy, and if, like I say, if you could see him, he could see you. If you could block him, he could block you. So that's one of the biggest pieces we have to tackle right now. But like I said, MDB task force, we're at the 85 to 90% solution, so it's nothing new.
So, go ahead.
I'm going to open up the aperture a little bit more, too. A lot of times, everybody's thinking about the interoperability. We got to get everything to talk to each other, and my office are doing great jobs. I'm a 140 Echo. I didn't say that when I introduced myself, so I'm a Patriot tactician, technician, right? I'm the senior one on island and the third senior in the Army. The other things that we need to worry about as well, though, is defense design and mission command, right? So we get these systems to talk to each other, but how many of them are actually being planned for true integrated air and missile defense to be able to operate together? Very frequently I go on exercises and, you know, Navy shows up and they've got their AG ships, and Army shows up and they've got their Patriot system, and sometimes even THAAD shows up, and neither of the three have actually sat down and done an integrated air and missile defense plan together that would eliminate missile wastage, eliminate possible leakers. Each weapon system's great. Do it on their own. Those would be, you know, improved when those systems work together, and some of them are capable of working together and don't. And then the other one is the mission command. We got to get humans in the right spot. Same as he said, you know, we got an Army guy working the JICO job, and they're realizing, wow, that's really working, and we really needed that. Same thing, right? Because we had all the air picture in the world, couldn't save us from engaging a Navy plane during OIF. We realized that we needed a human in there. We needed an Army guy who understood the weapon system that was being utilized by an Air Force guy, right? Air Force guy is in charge of an Army weapon system, but doesn't understand how to utilize it or reeling myself into as well, right? The classified arena. But anyways, so as we know, the implementation of Army ADAF goes within a command and control chain of an Air Force. So again, the battle goes beyond the interoperable piece. The battle goes into defense design planning, weapon system employment, and mission command.
So, in my key role as a facilitator today, and I'm glad you caught yourself. So when you start talking about certain topics, just be cognizant that if you go too far, that too far can be too far. All right? So go ahead, Curtis.
So I just wanted to address a few of those things that have been brought up. Number one, you know, I understand the firewall frustration. I understand firewalls have to be there for the right reasons still, but there are things that we need to do that the firewall is inherently blocking, and so we need to get those exceptions in. So I'm not trying to negate that, but you know, sometimes we talk about them like they're a problem, and they may be a problem to get something done, but they're a problem for the enemy. Is why they're there. You know, interoperability, we absolutely need to work for that. We need to absolutely look to continue to strive for information sharing. But I did want to bring one point up about the cyber threat, and that is that somebody's kind of mentioned it a little bit. If you're an emanator, then the bad guys can see you. They can find you. And radio waves don't just get to the end of your perimeter and stop and then fall to the ground. They continue going on forever, literally. So they get weaker and weaker, but they continue on. And my MI brothers can tell you in other forums that it's real easy to find and locate an emanator. So be cognizant of that. Whenever you are relying on communications, then be cognizant of whenever you are broadcasting that the bad guys are aware that you're broadcasting also, and that you now become a pinpoint on their acetate for their indirect fire or for their air interdiction. And the other thing is that we also have to be aware that the enemy can deny us communications. That is extremely easy. Very, very easy. Our EW guys can tell you that. Denying access to a satellite is much easier than you think. It doesn't take sophisticated equipment. Basically, all it takes is the equipment that you need to be able to access it, overdrive it, no one's talking. So what that drives me to, and even I think there's a newer Air Force stealth plane that they won't put Link 16 on because it becomes broadcasting its location.
I got to stop you for a second because this conversation is going to go where we need to be.
That's all I was going to say on that. But,
and close doors. Right. Thanks.
So my point is that know how to conduct business, know how to enable your boss to be able to conduct combat operations and conduct mission command without your communications. Because it may be that FM is all you're going to have. And it may be that a runner is all you're going to have, because all of that's going to be denied. So don't become absolutely and totally dependent on those communications capabilities to be able to conduct operations. Have those second, third, fourth, and fifth abilities, and work those things, practice those things. I just want to
Any
temper
questions?
that.
Aaron?
Hey, Roy, if I could. Hey, so we've talked about multi-domain battle, and I don't want to make any assumptions here. I don't know how familiar everyone is with it. Are you familiar with the concept of the multi-domain task force? Anybody? There should be a few guys here. I know my MI warrants better know. So the Army has come up with for this multi-domain battle concept, there's a multi-domain task force that the Army has come up with the concept for. There's an O&O. They don't know if they have it right yet. But USERPAC has been designated as the pilot for this multi-domain task force for the next 2 years. And in answer to your question about exercising, it's being worked into every exercise we have here in the Pacific, not just Army, but joint as well, to test out different concepts and different pieces. Because we know we're not going to be able to just lock, stock, and barrel test this whole task force. This task force is about 2,000 people.
Yeah.
And it is that multi-domain, and that's basically space to mud. So I'm looking at everything. I'm not just looking at the joint piece, but I'm looking at my land component, my air component, my sea component, my cyber component. And it's about getting the whole task force together to be able to operate. And it is, some of you say we've done this before. We have to some extent, but we've never done it like this. And they don't know if they have the organization right. And some of obviously the TTPs that will eventually become part of the doctrine that comes out of this. But that's our job for the next 2 years, is to try to figure out, is what the Chief of Staff of the Army thinks he wants, is it right? Or is it not right? And it's all about that, and it's about the threat here in the Pacific, and it's about being able to move quickly, because as we just talked about, emanate. So anytime I emanate, now he knows where I am, so I have to move. So I just want you guys to start getting your heads around having all that capability in one unit, and then being able to quickly move it. So when we talk about the comms interoperability piece, we're talking about up, down, right? Put people forward, move people around. So just getting your head, then there's a leadership issue that we haven't even discussed here. Because I know from the MI piece, what I've already looked into the MI, it's going to take a very dynamic leader to be able to harness the capability we would have at this task force. And then the overall commander of this task force is a fires guy in 06. He's going to have capabilities that a fires guy has no friggin' concept about. And I will tell you that looking at the rank structure of this task force, there aren't enough warrants in it. I can tell you that right away. And having some of that subject matter expertise to be able to advise that commander on how he uses some of the capabilities that he has. So if you guys are not familiar with this multi-domain task force, and you're interested in learning more about it, I have the O&O. I am the lead for the G2 for the USERPAC effort on the multi-domain task force. Shoot me an email. I'm Erin O'Hara. I'm the only one in the global. So give me a shout, and I'll get you guys up to speed on this and get you the presentations. But it's an ongoing effort, and at this point, we don't know what we don't know. So we're here to do the proof of concept. So there's going to be a lot of exercises where we're doing crazy things, maybe that we've never done before, working with the Marines, with the Air Force, with the Navy, doing things that we haven't done. And it's not just the missile piece, which I know you guys who do the missiles like to focus on that. It's not just about the killing piece. But anyway, so that's all. Thanks.
So looking down at my notes, she just covered all my last 5 topics. And I definitely appreciate that, because...
Sorry, Roy.
No, it's okay. That's what I was looking for. I'm just supposed to be the facilitator, right, and the moderator. So, great.
So I think there's something to be said about all this. We've been talking a lot about, very specific things like networks and patriots, and And the task force is great because it broadens it a little bit, but there's one thing that was said earlier this week by General Brown. One of the great things about being the CCWO is you get to come to these things for the whole day because that's what your job is. So he said interoperability is going to take people, technology, and policies. The people we can work with. We can work through our exercises in order to get this multi-domain battle thing going. Technology is going to have to be agnostic, which is what our Patriot guys are saying. They're saying that each system has to talk to one another. We can't have barriers. Got that. The policy is the part where I think is going to be the hardest part. And the reason I say that is because when Marine ammo soldiers go to school, they go to a DOD school. They go to the Army school. They meet up with soldiers. But we never see each other again. They issue ammunition on one form. We issue ammunition on another form. It's completely different. The policies are not the same. Air Force is the same way. And I'm making it simplistic because these are the kinds of things that we're going to have to get purple on in a way in order to make NDB the best. One of the things, we say multi-domain battle, but the culmination point of any offensive action is the limit to which the land forces can be sustained. And I think about probably, if I had a guess, 80% of us in this room are sustainers of one way or another. So MDS, multi-domain sustainment, will become the crutch that if it doesn't work, will defeat the MDB. We have to figure out how to make sure that a Marine system sitting in one location can get an Army part that's only 2 miles away rather than ordering a part that's sitting in a depot all the way back in CONUS. I've got to know what Air Force ammo needs and what I have that I can provide them. ASOS takes care of a lot of this, but it doesn't take care of everything. We haven't communicated that, and that's the key, I think, that makes multi-domain battle, and as I'm calling it, multi-domain sustainment, take it for what it's worth, but I think it's important. Sustainment will keep the battle going, and sustainment warrant officers and warrant officers in this room will be the ones that will drive this train. We will be the ones that are telling the bosses, this isn't going to work, and this is why. However, if we do this, it will work, and it will make it better. So, hoorah to my Marines. I want to say one thing, the unicorn comment. Always be yourself, unless you can be a unicorn, and then be a unicorn. So.
I like that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. True? True. All right. So sustainability, maintaining, right? I think that's where our realm falls into specific job.
Could you tell us who you are?
I'm sorry about that. My name is Warrant Officer. I work for Marine Corps Base Hawaii up there, CB3. So every warrant officer, chief warrant officer, they are specific to their job, right? They are selected from the enlisted in order to do, you did a really good job, I need you to be a leader of that area, right? So because of that, you get blinders on because you're worried about your community or doing what your job is, right? It's difficult, and then now we're asking, okay, let's open up, let's cross domain here. The policy part that it was mentioned is difficult because if I want to make a change in my MO, my job specifically, my community, my advocate is a 1-star Marine general, a 3-star Marine general, depending on where I'm sitting in my higher headquarters, right? But that's where it goes, and then it goes maybe to my commandant, right? Well, who's my advocate if this is the plan, right? If this is the direction the services want to go, who's our advocate to reach out and say, yeah, I got an idea about that. Why don't we make it this policy or that policy? Because right now, as I stand, and I'm just a wobbly one, right? I got many years of experience out here, and so I got a ways before I get to that higher level. But if I have that idea, who's my advocate? Who do I go to? Because all I'm going to tell is my community, and then where is it going to die once it reaches, the next person? So if we want to go for this cross-pollinating policy, personnel, defense, who's our advocate? Who would we reach out to in order to voice those concerns so it can get to all services?
So I'll take part in answering the first part of your question. So the multi-MDB task force that was set up and all the working groups that are going on right now, the question you just asked is going on my paper, and it's one of the things that's going to be taken back to try to help facilitate, to build in a way to get answers for your question, not only just answers, but developing something that's going to stay linked and positive as, you know, procedures, processes, protocols, or whatever that might be.
Right, and who do I bring that to? So
You just did.
Oh.
The
Does
whole
Daniel
point of
come
this-
next year? No. Right, yeah, and then just who's our advocate, right? So
Yeah.
as things change, because technology will change, our mission will change, right? Different enemies, different situations will come up, and so as those things happen, the forum, which this may be one of them, to bring up those policies, and it may need to be behind closed doors, you know, in a secure situation, depending on how classified that information needs to be. But an advocate to go to so they can have a voice and say, here's how we want to, through all the services, this is what we want to do, this is the policy direction we want to go to.
So hence the reason why we have all of these highly skilled professionals in the room. And you know, I'm kind of feeling kind of bad because my Navy partners didn't show up, per se. But it's important for all of us to come together, collaborate, and to be able to know that we have someone in another part of the joint services that we can reach out to get those type of answers, right? That's why this is important. Yeah, we're talking about mostly MDV, but there are other important things that need to happen before we depart in the next 31 minutes. You need to know that the person to your left or right, and we're all Army for the most part, and we have a powerful Warrant Officer 5 from the Marine Corps sitting here on stage who has access to all the Marines here in the Pacific. Am I right?
That's correct.
He has access to all the Marines here in the Pacific. So, and nobody had any questions for anything else, right? Before I hit this other stuff. Does anybody else on the panel have anything they want to add? Because I don't want to steal time away from.
I'll just take a minute.
Go ahead.
From an aviation perspective, the Army helicopters and the cab, I know the integration into the multi-domain, it is being worked on at the CPX level. So we're always integrating these systems, and sometimes I think we get so focused on we're Army that we're going to fight pure, or this is our challenge, and this is what we have, and this is what we're going to focus on. But even during the warfighter exercise, it's like, why don't we get some Air Force, use the ATO and get some Air Force support to help peel back this ADA layer before we send out our Shadows, before we send out our Apaches. What can the Navy provide, or what can the Marines provide? And this whole integration into the multi-domain, it comes into play, and you can see the culmination of effects on CPXs. So it is being worked, and the next step, I think, is to get it down to the lower levels and to work this integration into indirect fire and joint exercises, especially here in Oahu and PTA, because we have all the services close by. So I think that's the, I think the focus is right, and the multi-domain, we need to understand the systems that are in place and where we need to go.
Go ahead.
So here's the challenge on the aviation side. Hold on. So for the Army guys, if you've been doing this for a couple of years, we used to hate our ADA guys because every time we go to the field, you'd have a bored kid with a button that he wasn't supposed to push. And oh, by the way, there goes a Cobra, Apache, or a Scout aircraft, and he's bored, and there's the button, and it's cold and wet, and what does he do? He pushes the button, and now I landed, and OC's going, hey, I got to adjudicate you. It's a kill, and your own guy shot you down. The whole flies it dies thing. Okay, that was fun and games then when we learned how to play laser tag. But now here's the challenge that ties in everything we're saying here, and that is this. I want situational awareness in the cockpit that sinks into my ability to support the guy on the ground, but I don't want my own guys to take me off the grid, right? But the challenge we have is those very systems that build me that, just like somebody alluded to up here, is with the emitting, is I can see PX all day long and I can see all my stuff, but the reality is when I cross the whale line, I'm turning everything off. So now how am I synced into the system? And how do you overcome that? Because I got to mitigate, before I can help you, I've got to mitigate the threat to myself. So whether it's BFT or any other system that is putting something out there, do I mitigate it based on the distance of what that emitter actually puts out? And if I've trickled down that signal so small that if they have to have something at a strategic level before they'll pick me up, okay, fine. But we have to parse that down. That has to come into your planning. And that means as a warrant officer, as a tactical and technical expert, you have to have a voice with the planners. So again, going back to what I talked to you when I first stood up is, how are you synced in with your command to be able, and do you have the street cred to go, hey, time out. That's an ugly baby. All right? Now, it's not so ugly that we can't put some talcum powder and put a nice outfit on, and then now it's kind of cute. All right? But you got to be, or stand up. You guys ever work with someone and go, hey, man, you're looking at what's going down the road and go, hey, man, the king has no clothes. And everybody else around him is going, oh, my God, you look awesome. And you're like, whoa, time out. This is not right. Yeah. That's what our job is. Our job as warrant officers is to be able to go, hey, time out. So that forum on this, you've got to think multi-layers. And you've got to have the talent pool that's here, because your subject matter expertise may overlap or have second and third order of effects on somebody else's job and somebody else's mission. So for the aviation pitches, remember, when you're introducing something into the third dimension, we live there, okay? Yeah. So we have to be able to mitigate that out and still execute the mission at hand.
Good deal. Anyone else has anything? Go ahead, Archie. I was waiting.
Yeah. Hey, I know everybody's talking about air defense, cyber intel. I know Mark talked about ammunition. Being a maintainer, sustainer, we kind of need to look into how do we maintain those systems. Because again, we can do all this technology, we can do all this, working with people, but again, sustaining and maintaining those equipment, those missiles, those ground vehicles, those radars, that kind of comes into place. I got it, different services have different vendors or manufacturers of different type of equipment, but then how do we actually integrate those to where we can have like maybe some joint systems? I got it, we got JLTV coming up, to replace a Humvee, but again, looking into those other subsystems per se, then how do we sustain and maintain that? So I just posed that question.
Good deal.
Cool.
Anyone else? Because we still got time. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Chief Benjamin. I'm the Property Accountability Officer for 500, and he just spoke about maintaining. So I wanted to know, how does it, as a Property Accountability Technician, what is my role as a sustainer? How do I, strategically plan, and are you talking to the Senior 920 at USAPAC in reference to the LANPAC, and how does it affect me, and what can I do to help the LANPAC process?
Senior Logistician, I would have you to take that one. USAPAC rep, Mr. Ray.
Well, yeah, let me address, there's a couple of things going on here, going back to Mr. Martin about necessity driving policy. Past weekend we had Pacific Century 1702, and I came in on Saturday and I sat through that, and I'll tell you, I had the opportunity to go through my office and look at some things. Not once did they talk about sustainment on the level of maintenance. Ammunition and transportation were the keys there. Going back to what Archie, Mr. Cato was saying there, we did not address, what happens to that Patriot system once it has the ammunition on there? Now, 1703 is supposed to be a little bit more in depth, is what I hear, for the sustainment capability. But if we're not training, if we're not working on the exercises to that level of detail, then it's the what I've learned it's pixie dust. That's what this exercise was called, was pixie dust. We have to get to that level to where we understand that. One of the events that happened earlier in my career was back in 2006 when Lebanon was under attack. I got put out on a Navy ship, and I worked with Marines and Navy and Air Force. That was one of the best OPDs that I've ever seen in my life, having a real-world situation like that. So I understood a little bit. What I understood from that was there was a great difference of the way that the Navy and Marines track their equipment than what the Army did. I will tell you that the Army was ahead of the Navy and Marines at that time, because we were tracking by emails to a report readiness and things like that. So as we worked together on these exercises, Mr. Martin, right? It was Mr. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Shear was talking about, you know, how do we involve ourselves in these exercises? Well, we got to do it. We have to be able to understand our craft. We have to understand what our limitations are and where we need help. And so as a supply tech or as a maintainer, we have to understand our shortfalls and shortcomings. We have to think outside of our box, and we have to participate and make sure that the people who we are employing to participate in these exercises understand what they should be doing. Because I'll tell you, last week I wasted my time during the warfare exercise. It wasn't designed to talk about anything about maintenance.
And I think one of the things what you're talking about is the systems that we've designed, that the Army has designed, or the military has designed to get after these CPX-type battle plans or battle exercises have never included the sustainment side of it. It's always been sort of a, oh yeah, let's do that too. You know, it's force-on-force type situations. How do you react? What do you do? We've never said, let's build these things in there. What do? We use measles to do that. Right. We say, oh, this system went down. Well, you need a repair part. Okay, we ordered it from X place and got it there in 2 days. Woo! Pixie dust and fairy dust all over the place. And I think that's one of the things. I don't know if there's a system out there that could be developed that could attack the sustainment side of it in an exercise or not. But maybe that's something we got to look at.
You have to have a rep. Your SME needs to be in
right.
the right cell.
Right.
That's right.
Representation.
Yeah, and so that's, I mean, sometimes we do get a rep in there. I know in Korea we always had an ammunition rep within the white cell of some type, at some level. So it's one of those things that I think we need to get after as well.
But that kind of leads to another answer to your question, Mr. Scheer, though, is that you find that there's a shortcoming, right? You find there's a shortfall. Hey, we're not being properly represented. I'm going to start nesting myself in this community somehow. I'm just going to invite myself on a ship. I'm going to invite myself into the AOC. I'm going to invite myself somewhere, start getting nested in there. Next thing you know, it becomes an MOA. Next thing you know, you have a memorandum of agreement with that unit. And if it becomes important enough and resource intensive enough, you wind up getting a doctrinal change. Like our AMDC commander, you know, the commanding general of the Army Air and Missile Defense Command at one point in time was not the Deputy Area Air Defense Commander, but he became such because it became doctrinally necessary for him to become the DATSI, and now we have that multi-domain or cross-service throughput, right? Go ahead. He's a brigadier general.
One-star.
Yeah, so my brigadier general now talks right to General Shaughnessy, right to a four-star general on the Air Force side on matters that have to do with our providing capability to him, but it wasn't always that way. On a smaller level, the Distributed Mission Operations Center, or DMOC or whatever, has a memorandum of agreement with the Army where they provide personnel, equipment and so forth so that I could conduct the Air Defense Artillery Fire Control Officer course that I used to run. It wasn't so resource intensive that we needed to do doctrinal changes. None of my doctrine says the DMOC is going to support this exercise, but it became an MOA because both services agreed that this training needed to happen, and it needed to happen between sister services. So same, you just kind of nest yourself in there and you prove that capability is needed, you prove that there's a shortfall, and then it grows from there.
That's personality dependent, though.
Oh, sure.
Can be.
But that's what we do, right? We're all type A, right? I don't know too many warrant officers aren't type A. So that's why I said we invite ourselves in. I've walked in on exercises before that nobody has told me to go to.
Right.
And I just sat down. And then after a while, people are like, oh, crap, why aren't you here normally? Well, because you didn't know. You didn't know I didn't exist. You didn't know what I bring to the fight. But here I am. You want to make this something that we, again, you establish an MOA, and then who knows? If necessary, it grows into doctrine.
I have one comment with Chief Ray's comment that he said in 2006. I was at Army Europe when that occurred. And by us talking with the ship out in the Gulf there and other places, we had a lot of personal recovery issues that came up, which we had a personal recovery cell go out to the ship, and it lived there to help assist. But I had to develop all the parts and pieces to cover like 50 nautical miles we didn't have covered PR-wise. So that was one of the big things we had to do, and that took us all the way to the joint staff to get that situated. And all the joint pubs obviously now include personal recovery at all levels and all services into it, even though it's called different things. But it's all organized, it's all in place. So hopefully in 2006, when that occurred, we won't have that again, I hope.
Well, you're right, and that was,
Yeah.
I remember that. I
Yeah.
mean, we were talking about Army Aviation, you know, at the Limassol, and it was really required to get those Chinooks in to evacuate. I mean,
Yeah.
it was just a huge issue that we had of coordinating and getting all that together.
And that's when Army Europe and CNE 6th Fleet got really hand in hand with each other to try to work those issues, because we had to satisfy that requirement to be able to cover that 50 nautical miles. And it doesn't look like a lot, but when it's on the over water, how are you going to refuel? How are we going to use Blackhawks and everything to get parts and pieces back? Had to obviously evacuate people, helicopters.
I remember
so-
that oil was one of
Yeah.
the biggest shortfalls, just
Yeah.
getting oil enough to fill a Chinook to keep it
was.
flying. You know?
Come on now. Okay, but that's just one of the things I wanted to bring up to, and CW5 Mike Kelly.
Okay.
I have a
Go ahead.
question, Roy. So is anybody here from Paycom? No. So let me ask you this, who do we fall under? Paycom. Maybe the throughput on getting some of this started to that next level is, and I'm surprised because there's some W5s at the Paycom, is to go, if you write a regulation at Paycom, who does that affect? Does it matter? It all says us.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And then it says Army and then Marines and Navy and Air Force, right? So maybe that's the belly button in the short term to affect some of this, because if Paycom says, hey, U.S. Marines, you will coordinate with the Army, and oh, by the way, Army, you're going to use the form the Marine Corps are using because there's a supported guy. It looks like that for PR. For reintegration, if somebody gets rolled up, USERPAC is the supported entity for all services for reintegration for personal recovery once you come back home. And they did that at Paycom. So that belly button for us is to go one level up initially, and then hopefully, if that grows roots, maybe we can get that up at the service component.
And I completely agree with it. I would say probably our biggest problem at this is the color of money. Whenever we start talking about a part or fuel, or it's the color of money that promotes it. But I want to get back to pushing ourselves into a meeting, because I'm famous for it. I will walk into a meeting. I don't care if I was invited or not. If somebody tells me to get out, I'll get out, but they better have a good reason why I can't be there. I will say that in the morning, Monday mornings, Tuesday mornings, whichever is the first day of the week, the ATSC has a stand-up with the CG or whoever is the senior officer on board. Down in that COIC sits guys like CW4 Babcock, CW4 Black, CW4 Hosny, CW3 soon to be 4, I'm sure, Burr. And when the CG has a question, she doesn't look to the officers to her left and right. She spins around in her chair and she expects one of these warrant officers to answer that question. Where's the watercraft? Where's the parts? Why is that thing still broke? If she has a question that takes it down to that level, these guys know the answers. They are some of the best in the business at it. But the reason I say it is because they get themselves into those meetings. I started inviting myself to other meetings that she had. Nobody told me to get out, so I just stayed. I'm not saying, bully your way into a meeting, but if it's a meeting that involves something that you think you can add technical expertise to, walk in a room, sit down, see what happens. Make a comment every once in a while. Listen intently and make intelligent comments that add to the conversation. And believe me, before you know it, it will be, where's Chief? Where is that warrant officer? Because I need them in that room, because they're the only ones that speaking the truth. And I honestly say, speaking the truth is the key.
If I could add on to that, many of us here have all been on UFGs, key resolves. I mean, you've been deployed all around the world. You're given the opportunity to get all this data of everything that happens to you while you're out there. And you wonder why we've got all these services that are working together, but don't really work together at the very, very bottom level.
Yep.
We always see everything at a wave top, and that's how it's always presented. However, I can tell you this just from going to Korea and working with all of you, that, hey, can you make this work? Well, yeah, I think we can. Well, will our aircraft parts work with your aircraft parts? Well, I don't know. But all these little problems, I guess that's what we need to call it, friction, we have the opportunity to write these point papers, write these info papers. We need to turn around and extract all this data that's creating our friction, because we know how to make things work. That's why you're a warrant officer, right? So when you're out there, I'm asking you, because I brought back so much data from Korea, and I sit here and wonder why I'm, bumping the Army guy next to me going, hey, how do you do this? And they're turning around and asking me, well, how do Marines employ people? Because all this that we're talking about, these combined efforts, Marines, we do it internally. Why? Because we're broke. And I don't mean broke as in hurt. I mean broke as in money. There's only 3 branches of service.
Right.
There's only 3. We're a department. We serve at the pleasure of the President of the United States. So that's why we're mobile always. We always have an expeditionary force out there. Always on each side of the world. Whether it's the 11th, 13th, 15th MU, which has all our internal assets, or it's the 22nd, 24th, and 26th on the other side. But the point of the matter is that we constantly go out there, and all of you go out there, but it takes a forum like this for us to complain and say, hey, here's what's wrong. But it's always going to stay wrong unless we bring it to light. Those info papers. We've got to present that data up through our chain of command. As he was stating earlier, in regards, who do I bring this up to? Well, you got to bring it up through your field. If your field is having a problem, bring it up to your occupational field sponsor. And then from there, take it up to the next echelon. Because you've got to get general level review. Without general level review, submitting this up toward the Commandant of the Marine Corps on our side, the General of the Army, I don't know exactly how you operate, but we are the ones that go out there and play the game and come back, hey, were you guys successful? Oh, yeah. Did you have any problems? Nah. Well, hell yeah, you did, and you know you did. You had a lot of problems, right? We're all, because you leave and you're like, what the hell? You complain to the next guy. But let's stop doing the complaining to the next guy and start doing this and presenting that info paper up for change, because we're the ones that are going to make it happen. Okay? When you're commissioned, you're merely placed into service, right? But when you're a warrant, you're guaranteed to work.
Yep. So I have 5 minutes that I'll allow for any additional conversation. Go ahead.
I'm CW4 Bernstein. I'm the Senior Maintenance Tech for 2nd Brigade, 25th ID. I had 3 different things I wanted to talk about. One of them that both the Marine Warrant Officers have discussed on how to bring ideas up. In the Army, we used to have something, the Army Idea Program. The program is somewhat either broken or gone away over the years. When I first came in, it was very prevalent. Anyone in the Army that had an idea, they could submit it. This is the problem statement. This is how I believe that we could fix it. And there were motivators out there. They gave cash rewards. They gave, plaques, whatever, something just to draw the ideas out of the force. I tried to submit several ideas when I was in Korea about 10 years ago. And the program basically, people stopped managing it. So there were 3 different levels it had to go through. Mine went to the first level, got passed, and went to the second level, got passed, and then it just sat there. Supposed to have a 30-day period maximum before it gets pushed up, but basically nobody was managing the program. So after several years of following up and nothing happened, they just went to the wayside. I think if we could get something like that back in the force, that would be a good avenue to bring ideas to light, not just from the warrant officers, but you never know who has a good idea. It could be the lowest ranking private has something that they see that someone else hasn't, and it can an easy avenue to bring it up to the top levels of the force.
Sure, I got you. Let me address that real quick.
Okay.
Because I gave you 5 minutes. But so call the Center for Armies of Lessons Learned. It's there for a reason, for those types of purposes. And by the way, you fall under USAPAC, right?
Right.
So there's a CW5 in every G staff in USAPAC. They are your seniors. Hold on for a second.
Okay.
So if you have some type of idea that you want to push up to the big Army for potential future implementation, you have your voice on the G staff. And once you present that, you don't let it go. You stay with it. You stay with it. You stay with it. Okay? That's the way we get stuff done.
Yeah, hey, Roy, find that, though, that great idea isn't a phone call or an email.
Right.
There's some.
There's processes, right. There's processes, but for sake of time, because I have a few things I want to say, but for sake of time, there are processes to get your good ideas heard and potentially implemented.
Roger, I understand for me, Carl, my idea is pretty much to try and draw it out of the force as a whole. As far as the Army lessons learned, I submitted in Korea. I followed up pretty much once a month for the rest of the time I was there. After I PCS, I even continued to email, no movement. So that's what I'm saying. The program that was in place is completely broken. I haven't even heard it mentioned for several years, and I think it was a good program. Call is something, either you get tasked or it's voluntary, but this was something that was drawing it out of the force because there was a motivator. If you come up with something that's going to be used, they'll give you some cash.
I got you. I understand. You're burning your 5 minutes.
Okay.
But the thing is you have access to a 4-star general through your senior warrant officer to get things done.
Yes, I do.
Every warrant officer in this room does. Every soldier in USAPAC does. That's. It came out last week. Yeah, you're right.
I haven't said it out yet.
Spot on. I mean, but
Okay,
next topic.
All right, next one, as far as interoperability, one of the problems that we have is supply on the SSA supporting of units. Another problem in Korea, I had parts at an Air Force unit. They wanted to allow me to have them, but it took several weeks just to be able to get the finance portion together so that I could get those parts. Within the Army just itself, trying to get parts from another SSA, depending on where you're at, can be extremely difficult. Here it's not too bad, the process, but there's actually a process built into the system where a referral system can be turned on or off, but every location you go to, it's turned off because I don't want to say it's selfish, but people...
It affects readiness.
In order to be able to project...
Let me stop you for a second. You see these two gentlemen right here?
Right.
Take it up with them afterwards. You got it.
Okay. I'm good then.
You're out of time. So it's critically important to, when you present, it's critically important to be brief. Get your bottom line up front, out of the way, and be prepared to engage questions. So not meaning to blow you off, but we are, right, we are deficient in time. So we got 5 minutes left. And there's a few things that I wanted to say to kind of round things up. So we have 758 warrant officers in the Pacific, 758. That includes the ones that are in cycle to come and those that are departing, 758.
Army?
Army. I don't have the numbers completely for the Marine Corps or the Navy, but I do have the numbers of CW5s. Marine Corps has 4, right?
4 here.
The Navy has 10. I kind of mixed those numbers up before.
Air Force has 0.
Air Force has 0. They lost theirs in 1958. But so the thing, Chief Wahab gave out an invitation to tour the AOC. I would recommend that. I don't care what MOS you are. I would recommend that tour. So take him up on it. I've done it twice. I didn't get it so much the first time, so I needed to do it again, and I'm glad I did. So please take him up on that. The next thing. There is an Army birthday, Army 99th Warrant Officer Army birthday dinner that's going to happen on June the 30th. General Brown, the Warrant Officer General, is going to be the guest speaker as of right now. He's still deconflicting the schedule, so that's going to be a go. It's from 1800 to 2000. My Marine Corps and Navy brethren will be invited, and it's going to be a celebration like none other. So for all of the warrant officers that are not here, that you know of, make sure you pass that along, because much like this, it wasn't mandatory, but there was an implied mandatoriness to this situation, right? Roy, right, highly encouraged.
Do we know where that's at yet?
It's going to be at the Haleakina.
Has that been published?
Not yet, not yet. I'm still working through the final decision point for General Brown on whether he's going to be able to do it or not. But right now, he's going to be able to do it. Prayerfully, nothing changes. So when you have your senior Army general officer, one of the senior generals in the Army, as a guest speaker at something that represents every Army warrant officer and warrant officers, period, in the Pacific and across the Army, and he's going to take 2 hours out of his time, out of his night, to come in and be the guest speaker for it. I think every warrant officer on this island should be in attendance. And I know I have the CW5s in every branch to support me on that. So the venue should be sold out completely for that event, because the Warrant Officer General he's very passionate about warrant officers and what we do. And to add to that, so I wrote a couple of notes to myself up here. We have a board of directors, CW5 board of directors for USAPAC. It's kind of been lacking lately, but we're going to get that thing reinvigorated. And we're keen on talent management and a few other things for the rest of the warrant officers that fall under us. So that's going to be kicking off, reinvigorated real soon. Senior voice. Everyone that wears a dot or the prestigious unicorns we are up here, we have voices. We have voices. And if you choose not to utilize your voice, that's your fault. It's your fault. Nobody else's fault except yours. So use your voice. The only way you can find out how much of a privilege or pull that you have in any environment is to use your voice. And don't accept no, because you're a warrant officer. Unless the no is, kind of wrong. Push forward and do great things. So, and we all have access to give feedback to our commanders about capabilities and about vendors. And we have vendors right outside and across the street in the other hotel that deliver products and capabilities to us. Warrant officers are the first line of defense for the Army not buying garbage. I'll say that again. Warrant officers are the first line of defense to keep the Army from buying garbage. Okay? As the Chief Technology Officer for USAPAC, I'm thoroughly engaged in that every day. It gives me a headache to sit at work behind a computer all the time. But everyone in here has that responsibility. Okay? Keep that first and foremost on your mind. And the last thing I'll say is, and I had to write it down, so I'm getting old. I want to remember. It says, our uniqueness is that we don't need permission to get involved. That's our uniqueness. Nobody needs to give chief permission. Your commander expects you to step out far and beyond to do some of that chief stuff, some of that mafia stuff, without being told. Take the initiative. Step out and do it. Get her done, or however you want to say it. Nobody needs to be coddled. Nobody needs to be babysat. You are warrant officers. And that's all that needs to be said. So, and in closing, because I'm down to my last 2 seconds. Thank you for your participation, and I look forward to LANPAC again next year, and prayerfully we'll need a bigger venue next year. Thank you.